Good morning, my dear boys and girls. I welcome you again to this history class. After the Harappan civilization, we are here to learn chapter 2, which is titled as Kings, Farmers and Towns. I am Mrs. Vanmati, PGT History, working in Kendra Vidyalaya number 2, HAPP Trichy. We discussed in detail about Harappan's culture, Harappan civilization, which is known for its urban culture, efficient town planning. After this, the most important development which took place between 6th century BCE to 6th century CE was emergence of various empires and kingdoms, namely Nandas, Mauryas, Guptas, etc. And my dear children, you have already learnt about Mauryas and Guptas in your lower classes. Something you remember. If not about the dynasty, at least if I tell the name of the king Ashoka, you may recall something. And about Gupta, Samudragupta, the great ruler. You may remember something about these rulers, their contribution to this Indian society. Here again, we have lot of information about this period, which is also known as Iron Age civilization. It is possible because lot of information in the form of rock and pillar edicts were available. The credit goes to James Prinsep, who deciphered Brahmi and Kharoshthi scripts found in these inscriptions. These scripts reveal lot of information about the early kingdoms, the emperors. Most of them refers king as Piyadasi, which means pleasant to behold. And it mentions about King Ashoka, a very famous ruler known for his non-violence, peace and his contribution to the spread of Buddhism. Yes, this chapter also discusses about how towns emerged, how trade developed, what was a society consisted of, social communities, and about great King Ashoka. Now, this slide will explain you about the 16 Mahajanapadas. This is another important feature. 6th century was a major turning point in early Indian history. Yes, it witnessed many kingdoms, especially the 16 Mahajanapadas, which were spread throughout the Indo-Gangetic Plain area. Amongst the most important ones were Magadha, Kosala, Kuru, Gandhara, Avanti. And these kingdoms emerged with the help of so many natural resources and efficient rulers. Use of iron was very commonly found, and there was progress in coinage too. Though many kingdoms, 16 kingdoms, were existing simultaneously, but Magadha was one of the powerful kingdom, or rather we can say the most powerful kingdom. How it emerged as one of the powerful kingdom, what were the factors favorable for its emergence, we will discuss about this in the next slide. Almost all the kingdoms were equally powerful and trying to expand beyond its limit. Some were ruled by kings, ganas or sanghas, and each Mahajanapada had its own capital. As I told, James Prinsep was a person who deciphered Brahmi and Kharoshthi, which helped to know a lot about these kingdoms. Now let us look into the silent features of these 16 Mahajanapadas. It maintained fortified cities almost all the Mahajanapadas were fortified, especially its capital. These fortification need maintenance of army in turn bureaucracy, and for maintaining this army and bureaucracies, the rulers required resources. It is told that the rulers collected taxes and tributes from cultivators, artisans, and traders, which is evident that trade was another important feature apart from agriculture, which was flourishing to its greatest extent and which helped the rulers to fill their royal treasury and thus maintain the kingdom, the army, and bureaucracy. As I told, these Mahajanapadas did not limit up with their territory. They tried to expand, which led to wars or fight between the neighboring kingdoms. It was very common feature. Frequent war among these Mahajanapadas was very common feature. As I told, Magadha emerged powerful and it could defeat the neighboring kingdoms and remain as one of the biggest empire, we can say rather. It developed from the position of kingdom to empire by conquering neighboring kingdoms. The economy of these Mahajanapadas was good. Mainly, the major income they got from agriculture, and many individual holding of land was there, means ownership of private properties was there. All the kingdoms or the whole land area was not owned by the rulers. Apart from that, craft production and urbanization also made their contribution to the rulers. These all were reflective and evident through the terms used like Gahapati, Dasa, and many social groups were also mentioned here and there, which tells about merchant classes and other kind of agricultural classes. Gahapati generally means the owner, head of the family. Now, it is told that these Mahajanapadas, they gradually acquired standing armies, means they no longer remained as subordinates to one great empire. Rather, every one of them tried to exist individually by maintaining standing armies, and they maintained regular bureaucracy. Again and again I am telling, best example was Magadha, because Magadha was the empire which had everything, which possessed everything to continue its position as an empire. All others who were weak, they continued to depend on the powerful kingdom for their military recruitment and for their extending their support to these rulers. So, with these two things, we are here to look into next slide, which describes about Magadha. As I told, Magadha remained as one of the powerful kingdom. Many factors attribute to this. First and foremost thing, it had rich agriculture and mineral resource. Minerals like iron and coal was available in plenty, and iron was used for making weapons and coal for much other purpose. And land, agricultural land which was very fertile, and irrigation water facility they got from the river. These resources, as I told, helped in making tools and weapons. And Magadha was surrounded, especially the capital city Rajgir earlier first, was surrounded by forest. And these forests provided them elephants which were used in army. Magadha had a vast army and It had cavalry, infantry, and elephantry also. Rajgir was a capital city earlier. Later, they transferred to Pataliputra, which is present Patna. So, these are the reasons. Apart from this, natural resource and agricultural facilities, the rulers also contributed their best for emergence of Magadha, getting the status from kingdom to empire. Very ambitious, powerful, efficient rulers Magadha could witness, like Bimbisara, Ajatashatru, great king Ashoka. And it was these rulers who promoted Magadha to remain as one of the powerful kingdom among all the 16 Mahajanapadas. With these two introductory slides, we will look into the next content, special dynasties and their contributions. Thank you. In continuation with the chapter Kings, Farmers and Towns, now we are here to look into the powerful and popular dynasty, that is the Mauryas. It is believed that the founder of Maurya dynasty was Chandragupta Maurya. Chandragupta Maurya in 321 BCE. Lot of informations are available about this Mauryan dynasty. Besides sculptures, historians have used a variety of sources like written text of Megasthenes, Kautilya, his work Arthashastra, Kautilya, popularly known as Chanakya also. Buddhist text and Jaina and Puranic literature also reveals lot of information about the Mauryan dynasty, Mauryan empire, Mauryan kingdom. Inscriptions of Ashoka helps a lot to reconstruct the history of Mauryan empire. Now we will look into the administrative structure of these Mauryans. Generally, Mauryan administration are evident in the Ashokan inscriptions. It is believed that there were 5 major political centers in the empire. That is, the whole empire was divided into 5 political centers. The capital Patliputra and the provincial centers of Takshila, Ujjaini, Tosali and Swarnagiri. I would repeat, the capital was Patliputra, which was one of the major center of administration. Apart from that, other important cities were also marked as the administrative centers. They were Takshila, Ujjaini, Toshali and Swarnagiri. Virtually the same message was engraved in most of the other contemporary sources. Whether they had a uniform system of administration they followed, the question rises, which could be accepted because same kind of informations are prevalent in all other contemporary sources. So historians would have derived at the conclusion that a uniform system of administration was followed by the Mauryans. Among the officers at the district discussed in Ashoka's inscription is the Rajuka. They were responsible for surveying and assessing the land and administering justice. Again I repeat, among many bureaucrats, Rajukas were the important officials who provided the work of surveying, assessing the land and administering justice. Here I would like to inform you that Ashoka, as I was repeatedly telling, was a great ruler who propagated Buddhism. He appointed special officials called Dharma Mahamattas. And these officials were to spread Dhamma. So it is believed that he replaced Beri Ghosha with Dhamma Ghosha. Yes, he avoided war, and the only war fought during his lifetime, it is believed, was Kalinga. Now again, to explain about the administration, among the other officials mentioned in Ashokan inscriptions are those connected with the administration of the city and those who worked among frontier peoples. As I was again telling, the officials referred as Dhamma Mahamattas. Their function was to record gifts, donations made to religious establishments. And in addition to this, their duty was to spread the message of Dhamma. With this, the Ashokan or Mauryan administration and about Ashoka, the great ruler, comes to an end. Now we are here to look into towns and trade. Towns and trade. Before looking into towns and trade, we are here to look into the divine kings, the form of divinity attached to the kingship developed during this period. It is believed in the post-Mauryan period, that is, after the Mauryan Empire, many more empires existed, and one such emperor was Kushana, the kings of Kushan dynasty. It is as per the inscriptions and other evidences, they started endowing a divinity to the kings. Special sanctity came to be attached to the kingship or king's position, like kings were believed representative of God. This form is also not new, because even Chinese rulers had such kind of practices. The rulers of China, they call themselves sons of heaven. Sons of heaven. So Ashoka merely mentioned in his inscription as dear to the gods. Hence his inscription bore the words like Devanam Piya, Devanam Piya. But the Kushan kings were called sons of God. Sons of God. The notion of kingship they wished to project was evident in their coins and sculptures also. For this again we have evidence in the form of statues, as mentioned, sculptures and coins. Colossal statue of Kushana ruler have been found, and historians feel this indicates that the Kushanas considered themselves as god-like. That is, they are the representatives of God ruling here on earth. The coins of some of the tribal republican states also reveal that they came to be headed by their gods, in whose name the coins were issued. So the main chief ruler and then the subordinates in the republican areas. And next look into the next dynasty is the great king, especially Ashoka and Kanishka, followed Buddhism and they spread Buddhism. They took it as their prime duty to spread Buddhism and followed non-violence. Now here we are to look into the agricultural strategy. There is main change or turnover, or we can say the change or technological change was adopted, since iron was known to these people of these great dynasties. So iron was used in large number, especially in plough also, which helped them in agriculture to a great extent, whereas the previous culture, that is Harappan civilization, was not known about. They did not have the knowledge about iron, or iron was not discovered at that time. So the period 6th century BCE to 6th century CE was marked by the tremendous expansion of economy, in particular of agriculture. Use of plough with iron ploughshare and introduction of transplantation and use of irrigation through wells, tanks, less commonly canals, were the most important things which were helpful for agriculture. Yes, they practiced, and it is believed that apart from the plain areas and semi-arid areas, in the hilly tracts they practiced hoe agriculture, which was much better suited to the terrain part. Then as I told, introduction of system of paddy transplantation, which led to intensive cultivation of rice, and it increased the yield. You know, paddy, how, why paddy is called transplantation? Earlier it is first sown and then it is removed after some period and then again it was planted. That is to some extent in size of a small grass, it is allowed to grow by sowing the seeds. Then that grass type was removed and again it is transplanted with gaps. You might have seen, some of you belong to village parts, or children would have seen how paddy is transplanted after some period of growth. So this kind of transplantation increased the yield. This was most probably and prevalently followed in Gangetic Plain. Then another important feature was they classified the land according to the quality of the soil. Quality of the soil. Awareness of this was known, and the importance of agricultural time and the need to perform agricultural tasks in quick succession for success in agriculture according to the season and then irrigation facilities. So very in-depth and detailed knowledge about agriculture, seeds and growth and season was known to the people of this period. Now another strategy leading to increase in agricultural productivity, according to the Buddhist text, it is believed that the new rural elites were engaged in agriculture. The terms like Gahapati used to designate large landowners, Gahapati, and small peasants called Dasa. They did the agricultural labor work, and like this you find agriculturists were existing and involved in the agricultural task fully in the rural areas. Early Tamil literature also mentioned different categories based on access to land, like large landowners are called Vellar, plowman, Ulavar, slaves, Adimai. So such kind of informations are there in the text of this period. So it was a vast occupation adopted throughout India, even in the southern parts during this period. Now to look into the towns. In the towns, different types of people lived, like washing folk, weavers, scribes, carpenters, potters, religious teachers, and merchants. Of course, town consists of people of different groups and different. Emergence of towns and trade. New cities were located on trade routes, like Pataliputra on river route, Ujjain land route, Puhar in the south near the coast. Guilds or shrenis were some of the organization of craft producers and merchants which were found in these towns to regulate a systematic transaction of goods and commodities. These number of trading community also developed. Trade beyond the subcontinent like Asia and Africa was a common feature. Punch-marked coins were available, bearing the names of the ruling dynasties, and also their inscriptional evidences or script. Kushanas issued first gold coins, and Guptas promoted long distance trade and amazing coins. Several urban centers emerged in the subcontinent during this period, and people living in these areas traded artifacts like fine pottery known as northern black polished ware, ornaments, tools, weapons, vessels, figurines made up of gold, silver, copper, bronze, ivory, glass. So all these materials are known to the people of this period. Successful merchants designated themselves as Masathuvan in Tamil, Settis and Satavahanas in Prakrit. They became very rich. Exchange were, Exchanges were facilitated by the introduction of silver, copper, and gold coins. So, exchange of commodities was done with the help of the coins. Coins were made up of various materials like metals like silver, copper, and gold. The first coins to bear the names and images of rulers were issued by the Indo-Greeks who established their control over northwestern part of our Indian subcontinent. And the first gold coin issued in the 1st century CE was by the Kushanas. And we have lot of evidences of Kushana coins, coins of the Gupta rulers too. Hence, it is believed that Gupta period, there is a remarking always told, Gupta period was known for its golden age, maybe because of availability of gold coins, which explains the prosperity of the people and the kingdom during Gupta dynasty or Gupta period. With this, we are here to put an end to the explanation of these towns. And as I was repeatedly telling, the informations in the form of inscriptions were available about this Mauryas and Guptas and about this Iron Age period. The credit goes to James Prinsep, an officer of the English East India Company, who deciphered Brahmi and Kharoshthi. These script were used in the earliest inscriptions and coins. He was able to identify Piyadasi, referred to Ashoka. European and Indian scholars have used this information to reconstruct the history of major dynasties, especially the Mauryan dynasty. Scholars soon began to shift their focus from political history, and they started looking into the economic and the social developments of this period. In most of the inscriptions of Ashoka, this Piyadasi word is repeatedly mentioned or written or scribed, which meant pleasant to behold. From 6th century BCE onwards, Brahmanas began composing Sanskrit text known as the Dharma Sutras. The stories of Buddhist tradition refers to the term Gahapati, which was often used in Pali text to the second and third categories. Now let us look into the inscriptional evidences in detail with this basic information mentioned in the slide. Inscriptions are written, what is inscription if you are asked? They are the writings, virtually a permanent record on hard surfaces like stone. Generally, inscriptions are written on hard surface like stone, metal or pottery. The history of inscription in India is first associated with Ashokan edicts. Ashokan edicts were engraved on rocks and pillars. Hence, lot of rock and pillar edicts of Ashoka are available in various parts of India. Most of the Ashokan inscriptions were written in Brahmi and some in Kharoshthi. And some of the inscriptions were even bilingual, both Brahmi and Kharoshthi were also found. Inscription generally provide important clues. What kind of information do inscription give us? Why historians have taken it as major source? See, history is not constructed simply. Based on some source and evidence only history is being constructed. So inscription provide the following kind of sources, like the extent of the empires, wealth of the king, period of his reign, location of his kingdom, especially the name of the ruler, then his relationship with his subjects, how he was with his people, kind, soft, or very rude, cruel. All these kind of informations inscriptions provide. Another important feature of inscription here is prashasti. Prashasti are the official records giving details of the tales of the king's bravery, their achievement. Prashasti, praising one's own self, we can call it rather. One of the best example for prashasti was composed in Sanskrit by Harisena for Samudragupta and praise of Samudragupta. Those on land grants, they are usually appear on copper plates and even temple walls of the temples. Land grants means in those days the rulers had the practice of giving land as donation to the Brahmanas. Next, to look into the inscriptional evidences. The visit of Ashoka to the birthplace of Buddha are mentioned in some of the inscriptions. Inscription also record strategies adopted by the kings to increase agricultural production. So such kind of inscriptions can be taken as a source to know about the people, because in such kind of inscriptions only people's the relation of the king with the people could be mentioned, could be written in detail. They also provide details of religious practices and customs. Like Ashoka used inscriptions to proclaim what he understood to be Dhamma. Like this, you find inscriptions give a detailed information. As this slide, Changing Countryside, explains about the agricultural technology and how the kings filled their treasury by demanding tax, and how they made land grants, and it is told that women did not have independent access to property. So women were not given property rights independently. Whatever they got in the form of Sridhana, today what we call dowry, or gift given by her parents. Agricultural technology was adopted repeatedly, being told with the iron tipped plow and transplantation. So like this, they made all possible ways to increase the agriculture because it was the main source of income for the kingdom. Now, limitations of inscriptions. Though inscriptions, no doubt, are important source to know about this Iron Age period, but these inscriptions have its own limitations. Whatever written in the inscriptions cannot be taken, though it is a primary source and contemporary of the period, but it cannot be taken as it is. It has to be correlated with other sources of the contemporary period. Let us, what are the limitations? What are the problems faced by the historians while taking inscription as the evidence and source? Letters are weakly engraved, and some letters may be missing, damaged. Many inscriptions discovered but not deciphered. They were not published, not translated. Happiness or sorrow, such kind of feelings of human being could not take place in the inscription, of course. Whatever the king felt would have scribed in the inscription, not about the people and their sufferings or their happiness, their involvement and other things. So Ashokan inscription gives lot of information and describes titles like Devanampiya, Piyadasi, whatever it may be, but one should not deny that the inscriptional source are the major thing to reveal a lot of information about the rulers of this period. And this Iron Age civilization or period between 6th century BCE to 6th century CE is no doubt a major turning point in the political system, social structure, and of course urbanization. Second period of urbanization, we can call it rather.